I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd fall for a cop's daughter, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's some straight-up Hollywood nonsense, right? But here's the thing nobody tells you about secrets. They don't stay buried forever. They claw their way up through the concrete, through the lies, through every single wall you build to keep them down. And when they surface, man, they blow up everything you thought you knew about loyalty, power, and what it means to choose between the life you were born into and the one you actually want. See, 3 months ago I was running the East Side operation, moving product, keeping the peace, doing what needed to be done. Clean, efficient, no drama. Then she walked into that dive bar on Sunset and I swear on everything the whole room shifted. Dark hair, eyes that cut right through your BS, wearing this leather jacket like she owned the whole damn city. I didn't know who she was. Not yet. But here's what's gonna mess you up. Her father? He's the one cop in LA who's been trying to take down my family for 15 years. The one man who knows every single move we make. And what's exploding right now isn't just some forbidden romance story. It's way darker than that. If you're still here, then you already felt it. That tension, that pull, that danger you can't explain. And trust me, this isn't a story you want to watch from the outside. Subscribe now. Not for me, but because you know you're already part of this. And once the next chapter drops, missing it won't just feel wrong, it'll feel like walking away from a secret you were never supposed to hear. Hit subscribe before the truth hits first. Week 2, we're at this rooftop spot in Silver Lake. Downtown lights spread out like diamonds on black velvet, and she's telling me about her childhood. How her dad was never home, always working late, always chasing something she couldn't understand. How she grew up basically raising herself while he obsessed over cases that ate him alive from the inside. And I'm sitting there nodding, playing the supportive boyfriend role, but inside my head there's this voice screaming because I know exactly which cases kept him up at night. My family's cases. My operations. My blood. She says her dad's a good man, says he believes in justice like it's some kind of religion, and I can see the pain in her eyes when she talks about how that belief cost her a real father. How she spent every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation watching him choose the badge over her. And here's the thing that's gonna wreck you. I started to hate him for that. Not because he was hunting me, but because he hurt her. Because he made this incredible woman feel like she wasn't worth showing up for. That's when I knew I was in too deep. That's when the lines started blurring in ways I couldn't control. By week 4, we're basically living together at my place in Venice Beach. She's got her design stuff spread across my dining table, I'm running operations from my laptop in the bedroom, and we're existing in this bubble where neither of us asks too many questions. It's like we both know that one wrong question, one slip of the tongue, and the whole thing implodes. But the crazy part? We're happy. Like genuinely, stupidly happy in a way I've never been with anyone else. She makes me laugh, challenges my BS, calls me out when I'm being cold or distant. She sees through the walls I've spent my whole life building, and instead of running, she climbs right over them like they're nothing. And I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, there's a version of this that works. Maybe I can keep both worlds separate. Maybe I can have her and still run my family's empire without the two ever touching. Yeah, I was delusional. I know that now. The first crack showed up on a Tuesday night. We're watching some crime documentary, real basic stuff about organized crime in New York, and she makes this offhand comment about how fascinating it must be to live a double life. How the psychology of it, the compartmentalization, the constant lying, must eat people up inside. And she's looking at me when she says it. Not accusing, not suspicious, just observing. Like she's testing the waters. Like maybe she already knows something and she's waiting for me to come clean. I played it cool, laughed it off, made some joke about how I can barely keep track of one life let alone two. But that night after she fell asleep, I lay there staring at the ceiling wondering how much longer I could keep this up. Wondering what would happen when the truth finally came out. Because in my line of work, the truth always comes out. It's just a matter of when and how much damage it does on the way. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It's like 2 in the morning, my second phone, the one she doesn't know about, buzzing on my nightstand. I slip out of bed, take it to the bathroom, and it's my Uncle Marco. He's freaking out, voice tight with that particular kind of panic that means someone seriously messed up. Turns out one of our guys got picked up on a distribution charge and he's talking. Not to us, to the feds. And guess who's leading the interrogation? Yeah, her father. Detective James fucking Cordova, the one man in Los Angeles who's made it his life's mission to bring down my family. Marco's telling me we need to handle this, use our connections inside the department, find out what this guy's saying before it's too late. And all I can think about is the woman sleeping in my bed 20 feet away. The woman whose father is about to use this arrest to finally take us down. The woman I've somehow fallen completely, irrevocably in love with despite every logical reason not to. I spent the next 3 days playing both sides. During the day, I'm the doting boyfriend, taking her to brunch spots in Santa Monica, walking the pier, acting like everything's perfect. At night, after she crashes, I'm on encrypted calls with my crew, coordinating our response, pulling strings to find out exactly what the arrested guy told the cops. And here's what we learned: he gave up everything. Names, dates, locations, the whole organizational structure. 15 years of careful planning, of staying under the radar, of building an empire that the feds couldn't touch, all of it compromised because one idiot got sloppy and scared. My uncle wanted blood. The old school guys in the family, they wanted to send a message, make an example. But I talked them down, told them that kind of heat would only make things worse. What I didn't tell them was that I was protecting her father's case. That some twisted part of me didn't want to be the reason another investigator ended up dead. That I'd already chosen her over them without even realizing it. Week 6, she invited me to dinner at her dad's house. I'm not gonna lie, I almost said no. Almost made up some excuse about work or being out of town. But she looked at me with those eyes, said it would mean everything to her, that she wanted the two most important men in her life to meet. And I couldn't say no. I couldn't break her heart like that. So I went. Drove up to this modest house in Pasadena, middle-class neighborhood, American flag on the porch, the whole suburban cop aesthetic. And when Detective Cordova opened the door, I saw the exact moment he recognized me. Not my face, he'd never seen my face before, but something in his expression shifted. Some cop instinct firing off that told him I was wrong, that I didn't belong there, that his daughter had brought home exactly the kind of man he'd spent his career fighting. We shook hands. His grip was firm, testing, measuring. Mine was steady. We smiled. We made small talk. We pretended everything was normal while the air between us practically vibrated with unspoken truth. Dinner was brutal. Elena, my girl, she's talking about her new design projects, asking her dad about work, trying so hard to bridge the gap between us. And he's watching me the whole time. Every answer I give, every story I tell, he's cataloging it, filing it away. I can see him working, see the detective brain running background checks in real time. He asks what I do for a living and I give him the real estate story. He asks where I grew up and I give him carefully edited versions of the truth. He asks about my family and I tell him they're an import-export, which technically isn't a lie. And through it all, Elena's smiling, thinking this is going well, thinking her two worlds are finally connecting. She has no idea we're at war across her dinner table. No idea that her father already knows, or at least suspects, and he's just gathering intel before he makes his move. After dinner, he pulled me aside on the porch. Said he wanted to talk man to man. And that's when everything started to unravel. Out on that porch, Detective Cordova lit a cigarette, offered me one. I don't smoke, but I took it anyway. Some situations require the ritual, you know? We stood there in silence for a minute, the kind of heavy silence that feels like someone's about to pull a trigger. Then he said it, real calm, real measured, "I know who you are. Not your name, not your family, just, I know who you are." And something about the way he said it made my blood run cold. I played dumb, asked what he meant, but he just smiled. This sad, tired smile that told me he'd been through this dance 1,000 times before. He said he'd been doing this job for 23 years, said he's developed a sixth sense for when someone's lying, and that every single word I'd spoken in his house had that metallic taste of carefully constructed fiction. He didn't have proof yet, he admitted that much. But he was working on it. And here's where it gets crazy, where the real secret starts to surface. He told me he didn't care about me. Let me repeat that because it's important. This cop, this detective who dedicated 15 years to taking down my family, looked me dead in the eye and said he didn't care about putting me in prison. What he cared about was his daughter. What he cared about was making sure she didn't end up collateral damage in whatever game I was playing. And then he said something that absolutely destroyed me. He said, "You think you're the first guy from your world who tried to use my daughter to get to me? You think this is some original play?" And that's when I understood. This whole thing, this entire relationship that felt so real, so genuine, so unlike anything I'd ever experienced, he thought it was a setup. He thought I'd targeted Elena deliberately, got close to her strategically, all to gain leverage against him or gather intelligence on his investigation. The worst part? I couldn't even blame him for thinking that. In his position, with his experience, that's exactly what it would look like. I told him the truth. Right there on that porch, breaking every rule I'd ever learned about keeping my mouth shut, I told him I didn't know who Elena was when we met. Told him it was pure coincidence, wrong place, wrong time, wrong person to fall for. Told him that by the time I realized who her father was, I was already in too deep to walk away. And you know what he did? He laughed. Not a happy laugh, more like the sound of something breaking inside. He said coincidence is just another word for fate coming to collect, and that one way or another, this situation was gonna end with someone getting hurt. He asked me if I loved her, and I said yes without hesitation. He asked me if I'd be willing to walk away from my family for her, and I hesitated. That hesitation told him everything he needed to know. He finished his cigarette, crushed it under his boot, and said, "You got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to figure out which life you want, because you can't have both. And if you choose wrong, if you hurt my daughter, I don't care who your family is or what kind of protection you think you have. I will end you myself." I went home that night and couldn't look at Elena. Couldn't touch her, couldn't talk to her, couldn't do anything but sit on the couch and stare at the wall while she asked me what was wrong. I told her it was work stress, told her I needed some space to think, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. She thought I was pulling away, thought I was getting cold feet about us. And maybe I was. Not because I didn't love her, but because her father was right. There was no version of this that ended well. Either I walked away from the only woman I'd ever truly loved, or I walked away from the family that had defined my entire existence. Either way, I was gonna lose something I couldn't get back. But here's the thing nobody tells you about impossible choices. Sometimes the choice gets made for you. 3 days after that dinner, the feds executed simultaneous raids across 7 locations. They hit our warehouses, our fronts, our safe houses, everything. 23 arrests in one night, including my uncle Marco. And the warrant? Signed by a federal judge based on testimony from Detective James Cordova's confidential informant. The family went into lockdown mode. Emergency meetings, lawyers getting activated, people disappearing to secondary locations. And I'm in the middle of all this chaos when my phone rings. It's Elena. She's crying, almost incoherent, saying her dad's been shot. Some retaliation hit, someone from our organization decided to send a message, and they caught him leaving the precinct. 2 bullets, one in the shoulder, one in the chest. He's in surgery at Cedars-Sinai, and she's alone in the waiting room, terrified, and the first person she called was me. I should have stayed away. Every instinct I had told me that walking into that hospital was a suicide mission, that the feds would be crawling all over it, that I'd be made the second I showed up. But I went anyway, because she needed me. Because despite everything, despite the war between our families, despite the impossible situation we were in, I couldn't let her face that alone. When I got to the hospital, she collapsed into my arms and I held her while she cried, and I knew that I'd already made my choice. That I'd made it the moment we met, I just hadn't admitted it to myself until now. Detective Cordova survived the surgery. Barely. The doctor said another inch to the left and the chest shot would have hit his heart. When he finally woke up, Elena was there holding his hand, and I was standing in the corner of the room like some kind of ghost. He saw me, and for a second I thought he was gonna yell, gonna call security, gonna have me arrested right there. But he didn't. He just looked at me with these tired, knowing eyes, and he understood. He understood that I had nothing to do with the hit, that I was there because I loved his daughter, and that somehow, in the middle of this insane war, we'd both ended up on the same side. The next 2 weeks were a blur. The family wanted me to go underground, said the heat was too intense, said I needed to disappear until things cooled off. But I stayed. Stayed for Elena, stayed to make sure her father recovered. Stayed because running felt like betraying the one good thing I'd ever found in my messed up life. And during those 2 weeks, something shifted. The family started to see me as a liability. Started whispering that I'd gone soft, that I was compromised, that I cared more about some girl than about the organization that raised me. Then came the meeting. My uncle Marco, fresh out on bail, called a sit-down at one of our old spots in Chinatown. The whole crew was there, all the major players, and they wanted answers. Wanted to know where my loyalty was, wanted to know if I was still one of them or if I'd crossed over to the other side. And here's where the real secret, the thing that's exploding right now, finally comes to light. I told them I was out. Told them I couldn't do this anymore, couldn't live in a world where loving someone meant putting a target on their back. I expected anger, expected threats, expected them to tell me that nobody walks away from this life. But my uncle just smiled. This cold, calculating smile that made my skin crawl. And he said, "You think you have a choice? You think you can just walk away because you caught feelings for some cop's daughter?" He leaned forward, and I'll never forget what he said next. "You're not leaving, nephew. Because if you do, I'll make sure that girl and her father disappear. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that your choice killed them both." That's when I realized the truth. This wasn't about loyalty or family or the organization. This was about control. About making sure I stayed in line, stayed useful, stayed trapped in a world I was born into but never chose. And the only leverage they had, the only thing that could keep me there, was the two people I'd come to care about more than anything. So I made a decision. A decision that's about to blow up everything you think you know about this story. A decision that put me on a path I can't come back from. You already made your choice, even if you don't want to admit it. Drop a dot if you've ever kept quiet when loyalty and survival were at war. Go on. I'll see who's honest. And stay until the end. Because the move I made didn't just change my life. It broke the rules everyone else was too scared to touch. I walked out of that meeting and went straight to Detective Cordova's hospital room. It was 3 in the morning, Elena had finally gone home to sleep, and he was awake, staring at the ceiling like he'd been expecting me. I sat down in the chair next to his bed and I told him everything. Every operation, every location, every name in the organization. I gave him 15 years of family secrets in one conversation. I became the informant. The rat. The one thing I swore I'd never be. And you know what's crazy? He didn't want it at first. Told me I was making a mistake, that I was signing my own death warrant, that there were other ways to handle this. But I explained the situation. Explained that my uncle had threatened Elena, that the only way to keep her safe was to take the entire organization down before they could make a move. That I needed witness protection not just for me but for both of them. That this was the only play left on the board. Detective Cordova looked at me for a long time. Then he asked me the same question he'd asked on his porch weeks earlier. Did I love his daughter? And I told him the truth. Told him she was the only real thing in my entire fake life. Told him I'd burn down everything I'd ever known if it meant keeping her safe. And something shifted in his face. Some wall came down. He said, "My whole career I've been chasing guys like you. Guys who think they're untouchable, who think the rules don't apply to them. But you know what I've learned? The ones who flip, the ones who turn informant, they're not cowards. They're the only ones brave enough to choose something different." He agreed to work with me but on one condition. Elena couldn't know. Not yet. Not until we had everything in place, not until we could guarantee her safety. Because if she knew what I was planning, she'd try to stop me. Try to find some other way, some solution that kept everyone alive. And there wasn't one. This was it. The next 6 weeks were the most intense of my life. During the day I was playing the loyal soldier, showing up to meetings, taking on assignments, pretending everything was normal. At night I was meeting with Cordova and a federal prosecutor named Sarah Chin, giving them everything they needed to build an airtight case. Names, dates, financial records, shipping routes, everything. I wore a wire to family dinners. Recorded conversations with my uncle. Documented every illegal transaction I was part of. And through it all, I was lying to Elena. Telling her things were getting better, that the heat was dying down, that soon we could stop looking over our shoulders. Every lie killed me a little more, but I kept going because I knew it was the only way to save her. The prosecutor told me they needed one more thing to make the case stick. A recorded confession from my uncle admitting to ordering the hit on Detective Cordova. That was the piece that would turn this from a RICO case into a life sentence with no possibility of parole. Setting up that confession was like walking into a burning building. I had to make my uncle trust me again, had to convince him I was still loyal, still committed to the family. So I did something that still makes me sick to think about. I told him I'd take care of the detective problem permanently. Told him Cordova was recovering, would be back on the job soon, and that the smart play was to finish what we started. My uncle's eyes lit up when I said it. He pulled me in, hugged me, told me he knew I'd come around. Said that's the nephew he remembered, the one who understood what family really meant. He gave me the green light to plan it, said he'd provide whatever resources I needed. And then, because he trusted me, because he thought I was back on his side, he started talking. Started explaining how the first hit was supposed to send a message, how Cordova had gotten too close to our operations, how eliminating him would buy us the time we needed to restructure and disappear the evidence. Every word was recorded. Every admission captured on the wire taped to my chest. I handed the recording to the prosecutor the next morning. She listened to it twice, then looked at me and said, "We move in 48 hours. After that, you disappear. New name, new life, new everything. You ready for that?" And honestly, I wasn't. I wasn't ready to leave behind every person I'd ever known, wasn't ready to become someone else, wasn't ready to tell Elena that the man she loved was about to vanish into witness protection. But I didn't have a choice. The clock was ticking and my uncle was expecting me to move forward with the hit on Cordova. If I didn't act, if I didn't give him something, he'd know I'd flipped. And if he knew, Elena and her father would be dead within hours. So I went to Elena's apartment. Told her we needed to talk. Told her to sit down because what I was about to say would change everything. And I came clean. Told her who I really was, what my family did, how we'd met by chance but how our entire relationship had been built on a foundation of lies. I watched her face go through every emotion: confusion, disbelief, anger, betrayal, hurt. She asked me if anything between us was real, if I'd ever actually loved her or if she was just some pawn in a larger game. I told her it was the realest thing in my life. Told her that walking away from my family, becoming an informant, risking everything I'd ever known, I did all of it for her. Because losing her was worse than losing everything else combined. She started crying. Not gentle tears, but the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, from realizing that your entire reality has been a carefully constructed lie. She asked me what happens now, and I told her the truth. Told her about the raids that were coming, about the witness protection, about how I'd have to disappear and she'd have to decide if she was coming with me or staying behind. And here's the part that destroyed me: she didn't answer right away. She sat there in silence for what felt like hours, processing everything, weighing her options. Finally, she looked at me and said, "You're asking me to leave my entire life behind. My career, my friends, my city, everything I've built. You're asking me to become someone else because you couldn't be honest with me from the start." And she was right. I was asking for everything while offering nothing but more uncertainty. Then she asked about her father. Asked if he knew, if he was part of this. And I told her yes. Told her he'd been working with me for weeks, that this whole operation was designed to protect both of them. Something shifted when she heard that. The anger softened into something else, something I couldn't quite read. She said, "My dad has spent his entire life chasing guys like you. And you're telling me he's helping you escape? That he's okay with you and me?" I explained how our conversation went, how he understood that I loved her, how he'd seen enough guys in this life to know the difference between someone playing a game and someone genuinely trying to get out. She asked if she could talk to him, and I said yes. Said that was probably the best thing she could do because he'd tell her the truth in ways I couldn't. The next day, Elena went to see her father. I don't know what they talked about, don't know what he told her about me or about the case or about what comes next. But when she came back to my place that night, she had this look in her eyes. This determined, resolved look that told me she'd made her decision. She said, "I'm coming with you. Not because I've forgiven you for lying and not because I think this is going to be easy. But because despite everything, despite all the lies and the danger and the impossible situation you've put me in, I still love you. And I'd rather start over with you than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been." I held her, and for the first time in weeks I felt like maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. The raids went down exactly as planned. Federal agents hit 7 locations simultaneously, arrested 32 members of the organization, seized millions in assets and product. My uncle Marco was taken into custody while eating breakfast at his favorite diner in Burbank. The look on his face when they slapped the cuffs on him and read the charges, knowing I was the one who gave him up, that image is gonna live in my head forever. Detective Cordova personally led the raid on our main warehouse. He made sure to be there when they hauled out the evidence, made sure his face was the last thing my family saw before they got loaded into federal transport. It was his way of closing a 15-year chapter, of finally winning a war he'd been fighting since before I was born. And me? I watched it all happen from a safe house in Orange County, Elena next to me, both of us holding hands while our old lives burned on every news channel in Southern California. The prosecutor came by that evening with new IDs, new social security numbers, new birth certificates. Said we'd be relocated to somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere nobody would think to look for us. Said we'd have 6 months of financial support while we got established, then we'd be on our own. Said the most important thing was to never contact anyone from our old lives, never slip up and mention something only we would know, never give anyone a reason to start asking questions. We nodded, took the documents, and became different people. But here's the secret that nobody talks about when they tell witness protection stories. You can change your name, change your location, change everything external, but you can't change who you are inside. You carry that weight forever. 6 months into our new life, living in some generic apartment in Kansas City, working regular jobs, pretending to be normal people with normal histories, I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced someone had found us. Elena would hold me, tell me it was just anxiety, that we were safe now. But I knew better. I knew my family, knew how they operated. Knew that the ones who didn't get arrested in the raids were still out there, still looking, still hungry for revenge. And I knew that one day somehow they'd find us. The question wasn't if, it was when. And what would I do when that day came? Would I run again? Would I fight? Would I finally have to make the choice between protecting Elena and protecting myself? That day came exactly 11 months after we disappeared. I was walking out of the hardware store where I worked, just a regular Tuesday afternoon, when I saw him. Standing across the street, leaning against a black SUV, staring directly at me. Marco's younger brother, Vince. The one guy in the family who was smart enough to avoid the raids, who'd been overseas when everything went down. And the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. He'd found me and he wasn't alone. I didn't run. Didn't panic. Didn't pull out my phone to call the marshals. I just walked straight toward him because after 11 months of looking over my shoulder, part of me was almost relieved it was finally happening. When I got close enough, he smiled. This cold, predatory smile that reminded me of my uncle. He said, "You look different. Clean cut. Very Kansas City of you." I asked him what he wanted and he laughed. Said he wanted the same thing the whole family wanted. Justice. But here's where it gets interesting, where everything I thought I knew about why he was there turned completely sideways. Vince told me he wasn't there to kill me. Said that would be too easy, too quick, too merciful for what I'd done. He said he was there to offer me a deal. The family had restructured after the raids, brought in new blood, new operations, new methods. They'd learned from their mistakes, adapted, evolved. And they wanted me back. Not as a soldier, not as a lieutenant, but as someone who could help them understand how to avoid federal attention, how to build an organization that couldn't be touched by informants or wiretaps or RICO cases. They wanted me to use everything I'd learned from working with the prosecutor to make them untouchable. And in exchange, they'd leave Elena and her father alone. Completely. Forever. I just have to come back, work with them for 2 years, help them rebuild, and then I could disappear again. For real this time. No hunting, no revenge, just a clean break. But if I refused? Elena's apartment building had already been scouted. Her father's new security detail had already been analyzed. The family knew where everyone was and they were just waiting for my answer. I told Vince I needed time to think, which was a lie because I already knew what I was gonna do. I went home that night and told Elena everything. Told her about the offer, about the threat, about how our 11 months of peace had just been the family waiting to make their move. She asked me what I was planning to do and I told her the truth. I didn't know. Because accepting meant going back to the life I'd risked everything to escape, betraying Detective Cordova all over again, and spending 2 more years lying to everyone including myself. But refusing meant watching everyone I cared about die while I hid in witness protection, powerless to stop it. Elena sat there processing this impossible choice, and then she said something that absolutely floored me. She said, "What if there's a third option? What if instead of running or surrendering we go on the offensive?" I asked her what she meant, and she explained that her father still had connections in law enforcement, still had access to resources and intel. That if we worked together, if we used what I knew about the family's new structure and what he knew about taking down criminal organizations, maybe we could end this for real. Not by hiding, not by cooperating, but by dismantling what was left of the organization completely. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was probably gonna get all of us killed. But it was also the first option that didn't involve me surrendering something fundamental about who I wanted to be. So we called Detective Cordova. Flew him out to Kansas City in secret, sat down in our tiny apartment, and planned something that made our first operation look like amateur hour. We weren't just gonna take down the new leadership. We were gonna expose their international connections, their political corruption, their law enforcement contacts, everything. We were gonna burn the whole thing to the ground so thoroughly that nobody would ever be able to rebuild it. And we had exactly 3 weeks to pull it off before Vince expected my answer. Those 3 weeks were a blur of surveillance, intel gathering, wiretaps, and careful coordination with federal agents who still owed Cordova favors. We identified the new leadership structure, tracked their movements, documented their operations. And we found something huge. Something that changed everything about what the family had become and what they were planning. The new leadership wasn't just running traditional organized crime operations. They'd partnered with an international trafficking network, something way bigger and darker than anything my uncle had ever been involved with. We're talking about an operation that spanned 5 countries, moved millions of dollars monthly, and had connections reaching into legitimate corporations and government agencies. Taking them down wasn't just about protecting Elena or getting revenge for what they'd done to us. It was about stopping something massive, something evil, something that had been growing in the shadows while everyone focused on the traditional mafia structure. Detective Cordova brought in federal agents, Interpol contacts, even reached out to international task forces that had been tracking this network for years. And slowly, piece by piece, we built a case that would bring down not just what was left of my family, but an entire criminal empire that nobody even knew existed. The operation went down on a Wednesday morning. Coordinated raids across Los Angeles, New York, Miami, London, and Sao Paulo. Over 200 arrests, including Vince and every single member of the new leadership. They seized bank accounts holding over $300 million, shut down trafficking routes that had been operating for a decade, and exposed corrupt officials in 6 different countries. It was the biggest organized crime takedown in federal history, and Elena, Detective Cordova, and I had orchestrated the whole thing from a tiny apartment in Kansas City. When it was over, when the dust settled and the news channels were running endless coverage of the international operation, the federal prosecutor called me. She said I was free. Really free this time. The family was gone, the organization was dismantled, and there was nobody left to come looking for revenge. She said I could keep my new identity or reclaim my old one, could stay in Kansas City or move anywhere I wanted. For the first time in almost 2 years, I had choices. Elena and I decided to stay where we were. Not because we loved Kansas City particularly, but because the people we'd become here, the life we'd built while hiding, it felt more real than anything we'd had before. We weren't running anymore. Weren't looking over our shoulders. Weren't waiting for the other shoe to drop. We were just 2 people trying to build something honest in a world that had been full of lies for too long. Detective Cordova retired from the force, moved closer to us, and we actually became a real family. The kind where we have Sunday dinners and talk about normal things and don't have to worry about who's listening or what secrets need to be kept. But here's the thing about stories like mine, they don't really end. They just pause. Because even though the organization is gone, even though we dismantled the network and put everyone in prison, I still carry those 11 months of looking over my shoulder. Still wake up sometimes convinced I see Vince across the street. Still have moments where I wonder if we really got everyone or if there's still someone out there waiting, planning, biding their time. And that's what people don't understand about trying to escape this life. You can bring down the organization, you can put everyone in prison, you can change your name and move across the country, but you can't erase the person you used to be. You can't delete the things you've done or the choices you've made. They're part of you forever, woven into who you are at the most fundamental level. So yeah, Elena and I are safe now. We're building a real life together. But we're also always going to be the mafia boss and the cop's daughter who burned down an empire and somehow survived to tell about it. And that story? That's something we're going to carry for the rest of our lives. The secret between us and her father, it didn't just explode. It rewrote everything we thought we knew about loyalty, family, and what it means to choose love over legacy. Now here's what you need to understand. This isn't just my story. There are dozens of others like it, people caught between impossible choices, living double lives, trying to escape systems that were never designed to let them go. And if you want to hear more of them, if you want to understand how these worlds really work and what happens when they collide, you need to keep watching this channel. Because the stories I'm telling, they're not entertainment. They're warnings. They're roadmaps for anyone trying to navigate the space between who they were born to be and who they're choosing to become. Click on the next video right now. Don't wait, don't hesitate, because the story that's coming next makes this one look tame. It's about a federal agent who went so deep undercover that she forgot which side she was really on, and what happened when her 2 worlds crashed together in the most devastating way possible. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. This channel isn't just about stories. It's about understanding the hidden wars happening all around us, the choices people make when everything's on the line, and what it really costs to walk away from the only life you've ever known. So stay. Keep watching. Because every video reveals another layer of the truth that most people never see.